Welcome to the APASL webinar series on Saturday. We have two very distinguished orators today. We have a slight change in the program, so kindly appreciate the urgency of Professor Lan-Juan. She is the first speaker for today, and she is the Director General of the Health Department of Zhejiang Province. She is a very well recognized epidemiologist and also a hepatologist. And both the topics today are kind of challenging, more so on behalf of people like me who are dedicated hepatologists. And the topics involve how hepatology, the liver disease science, is growing in China, and whether we need someone else to make liver people be more recognized. So will liver people alone take it? I doubt it. We have to have other colleagues join. And a hybrid. A hybrid is a person who has more than one qualities or talents or genes. And we have the first speaker is a hybrid. She is an epidemiologist, and she is also a liver specialist. In fact, she has developed many devices for liver failure, which are very popular in Japan, in China, and other countries. So today, without taking more time, I would like to invite Professor Lan-Juan, and she's going to speak on development of hepatology in China. Maybe we all can follow the models of how hepatology is growing in China, and she can tell rest of Asia the rules and the possibilities for growth of hepatology. Welcome, Professor Li.
Thank you. Okay, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lan-Juan Li from Zhejiang University, China. I'm honored to be here and have the opportunity to introduce the development of hepatology in China. Liver diseases are one of the major problems in China. About 100 million Chinese suffer from liver disease, such as viral hepatitis, liver failure, and liver cancer. However, we still lack understanding in the pathogenesis and the efficient markers of liver diseases. Recent years, with the development of technological innovation, such as multi-omics, stem cell, big data, and macroecology, our understanding of hepatology has made great progress. The WHO Global Hepatitis Report in 2017 pointed out that viral hepatitis still remained a major challenge for public health, and they called for the elimination of viral hepatitis as a public health threat by 2030. In China, there are several challenges for elimination viral hepatitis, such as coverage of vaccination and block mother-to-child transmission. We still need to improve health services and optimize the prevention and the control system. Moreover, novel antiviral drugs are needed, and we hope to cure and eliminate viral hepatitis. In the past years, we have made a lot of efforts to eliminate hepatitis B. Since 1992, HBsAg positive patients gradually decreased. Hepatitis B virus vaccination coverage increased and mortality due to the hepatitis B significantly decreased. Till now, we have published 4 guidelines for prevention and treatment of chronic hepatitis B. We have established a FVFT strategy for prevention and treatment of hepatitis B based on big data and cloud computing, which could significantly reduce the mortality of hepatitis B patients. This strategy includes find out all susceptible persons, found an immune barrier via vaccination, and treat all patients. To eliminate viral hepatitis novel, antiviral drugs are urgently needed. These drugs on the left are for HBV and those on the right are for HCV. In the past years, microecology has gained a lot of attention in China, which opens a new door for prevention and treatment of viral hepatitis. As reported, the gut microbiota contribute to the clearance of hepatitis B virus. Recent studies showed that probiotics could promote liver regeneration and maintain liver homeostasis. The microbiota could maintain the homeostasis of liver gamma delta T17 cells. Regulation of gut microbiota is one of the important treatments for liver disease. Fecal microbiota transplantation, a new method for treatment of liver disease, could induce seroconversion of HBeAg in HBeAg positive patients after long-term antiviral therapy. Microecology improve our understanding which liver cirrhosis. Gut microbiota was altered in Chinese patients with liver cirrhosis. A positive correlation was found between CTP score and gut microbiota dysbiosis in patients. Bifidobacterium was decreased. Enterobacteria was increased in patients. We first established the gene set in liver cirrhosis patients. Moreover, microecology also improves our understanding with drug-induced liver injury. Gut microbiota metabolite PDD is involved in APAP-induced hepatotoxicity by depleting hepatic GSH levels. Thus, targeting gut microbiome strategies were widely applied in treating liver disease in China. Probiotics Li01 and Li05 could slow down the process of liver fibrosis in cirrhotic rats. Targeting gut microbiome significantly improve hepatic encephalopathy. Application of probiotics could significantly reduce the incidence of hepatic encephalopathy and child poach classification. Most patients with chronic infection will progress to liver cirrhosis, liver failure, and HCC. How to diagnose and treat severe liver disease in early stages still remain a problem. We have made a lot of efforts to standardize the diagnosis and treatment of liver failure. Since 2005, the guideline of liver failure updated continuously in the worldwide for the diagnosis of liver failure in China. CMA published the first edition in 2006 and renewed in 2012. In 2018, we updated the guideline of liver failure based on the most recent evidence. Among several types of liver failure, early diagnosis and treatment of acute and chronic liver failure is very difficult. However, with the development of multi-omics, our understanding of liver failure made great progress. Recently, we identified 8 key proteomics prognosis predictors of ACLF, such as GC, HRG, HPR, and so on. Previous, our study revealed that ACLF and CLF patients showed quite different metabolomics characteristics. Transcriptomics of monocyte in blood showed the distinguished changes of 6 genes, including CYP19A1 and so on, and have diagnosis value on ACLF patients. There are 3 methods for the treatment of liver failure: comprehensive internal medicine treatment, artificial liver support treatment, and liver transplantation. However, medical treatment has a mortality rate of 70 to 80%, and the liver transplantation has problems such as shortage of liver and high cost. Artificial liver is an effective way to treat liver failure. In China, the development of artificial liver has gone through a long time. We have started the artificial liver related research science since 1986. And until now, we have constructed a complete set of artificial liver system, named this artificial liver system, which has been widely used in all over China. In our clinical practice after the treatment of this artificial liver system, the Q rate of acute and subacute liver failure patients increased from 12% to 79%. After a single treatment, ALT, AST, and PT significantly decreased. Bilirubin can be reduced about 50%, and endotoxin can be reduced to normal. So far, nearly 4,000 patients have received over 11,000 courses of this artificial liver treatment in our center. Here is the scatter map of this artificial liver system. It can remove bilirubin and ammonia effectively and integrate synthesis function, such as the supply of albumin and coagulation factors, and also can keep water, electrolyte, and acid-base balance. This artificial liver system achieved the same Q effect by using half volume of plasma compared with the conventional plasma exchange. Moreover, we found that this artificial liver system could function as a bridge for liver transplantation, which could significantly improve the survival rate of liver failure patients. This artificial liver system treatment before liver transplantation could significantly decrease MELD scores. The combination improved 5 years survival rate of severe liver disease from 60% to over 80%, making a great contribution to decrease the high mortality of liver transplantation with MELD score more than 30. Application of stem cell in liver disease in China could improve the survival rate of pigs with acute liver failure and improve liver fibrosis, as well as the MELD score of patients and reduce the occurrence of complication. It could also be used in artificial liver. Previously, we proposed that human BMSC improves the survival time of liver failure models by perchlorine and activating DLL4 notch pathway. Currently, we are still trying to study the application of stem cell in artificial liver, organ bioengineering. New methods, the stem cell will be applied to liver disease. Until now, many efforts have been dedicated the liver regeneration medicine, liver macro tissues, and organoids hold great potential to regenerate functional and transplantation liver grafts. Bioengineering whole liver has always been clinical attractive because of its replacement potential for liver transplantation. Recent liver on a cheaper technological have been demonstrated to be useful in controlling the delivery of soluble factors, 3D culture, drug testing, and monitoring cell behaviors. HCC is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in China. Early detection has significant potential for reducing the mortality of HCC. New diagnostic markers for early HCC and new therapeutic strategies are needed. Many developments of diagnostic markers for HCC have been made by Chinese researchers in recent years. Our team identified 30 microbiome markers for diagnosis of HCC. In summary, liver disease is still a serious disease. Artificial liver symptom, especially these ALS, showed significant effect in clinical treatment of liver failure in China. Stem cell therapy, microecological therapy, and regenerative medicine show a bright future. Technological innovation, including big data, cloud computing, and AI, contribute to the development of hepatology. This is our laboratory and our team. This is the Shulan International Medicine Center in Hangzhou. Welcome to visit our hospital in Hangzhou. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Lee, and very, very educative lecture. I learned a lot, and it's true that China has contributed and you have contributed. We would like to ask whether there are several questions for you. One of them is whether you can tell us which are the metabolites which the ALS removes. Ammonia is one, but what are the other metabolites which the ALS improves? Is my question clear? Professor Lan-Juan, the question is, what metabolites does the artificial liver support improve? What are the things that they remove? Now, maybe we have lost contact with them. Is that correct? All right. Maybe we have to move forward then. Has she left probably because of the flights? So this is possible. So we now will go on to, I will give my few comments on this. It's an interesting concept of having artificial liver support, but without the cells, just removing metabolites sometimes is not likely to make an improvement in survival. This is a key question. I have now the distinct pleasure on behalf of APASL to invite Professor Francesco Negro from the University Hospital Geneva, Switzerland. Professor Negro is an authority, has a long tenure as a full professor and is been leading the hepatitis C work in the European countries. He's champion on many of the WHO guidelines. He's also an immunologist, which is an additional feather in the cap of a hepatologist. Now, he wears actually 3 hats. He is in medicine, he is in hepatology, and he is in immunology. And he also controls the purse of APASL. So nobody can get a penny, or I would say shilling, or I don't know what to call, if he doesn't open the purse. So he controls the wealth of APASL. So today we have to learn from Francesco about what hepatology can grow and how can hepatology grow without hepatologists. And you actually have multiple hats. You will be the best person for us to learn how to have liver diseases, education, training and learning, and of course service grow. Welcome to APASL, Francesco Negro.
Thank you, Professor Sarin. It's quite an honor for me to be here today. I accept very gladly his invitation, even though when George contacted me for the title, I don't know if I should thank him because it was quite a challenging topic, and I don't know if it is possible to answer this question, because it's probably very easy to answer the question, what is going to be the highlight of 2021 in hepatology? But here the question is, what's going to be happening and what the pathology will look like in 10 years from now, or maybe even 20 years from now. This is extremely difficult to show. Let me share my slides, and I will immediately have a disclaimer because I will not discuss too much about science. It's easy, as I said, to foresee in 1 year, but it's very difficult in 10 years. I will show you some examples in teaching and healthcare, which probably will let you understand why I chose this title. The hepatology future does not depend on hepatology. I hope you can see that. Is it okay, the screen? Thank you.
We can see very well. Please. Go ahead.
So the answering the question about the future is extremely risky business. And I will show you a couple of examples. One example is a very popular example, and probably some of you knows that I love cinema. And so let me tell you about Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a movie directed by Ridley Scott in 1982. And he was imagining Los Angeles in 2019. There is a very funny detail in the script, because when one of the replicants tries to get into contact with one of his colleagues, is Rutger Hauer on the right-hand side of the slide, the amazing fact is that he is going to use a payphone. Now, you must agree that payphones are no longer used for many, many years, especially in Los Angeles. So this is just a very funny way of predicting the future. Just to let you know that predicting the future is extremely risky, even for very knowledgeable people. So I went even further than that, and to my surprise, I found out that Hans Popper, who is one of the unquestionable fathers of modern hepatology, gave a lecture at the annual meeting of AASLD in 1983. I don't know if some of you will remember that. And the title of his talk was The Future of Hepatology. So if you look at what Hans Popper was envisaging for the future of hepatology, it can be summarized in this slide. I mean, liver diseases are caused by environmental factors interacting with host modulators, and genes may actually affect this interaction. I think it is certainly a right way of predicting the future in 1983, but it's extremely incomplete, certainly not exhaustive. Now, in hindsight, it is very easy to criticize, but if you think about what has really changed the way we do hepatology 30 years or 40 years later, certainly is not due to this view of hepatology. So you fast forward now, and you come to today. Since 1983, hepatology has been revolutionized because of, for example, lifestyle changes, which led to the explosion of metabolic syndrome. And we are now flooded with NAFLD. The second issue which changed hepatology is internet. This was not forecasted in 1993. A third, just a more scientific, is high throughput drug screening. And among the amazing consequences of these approaches, let me just mention the discovery of drugs which are so effective in hepatitis C. So none of these changes were predicted in 1993, and none of these changes, I want to underline this message, came from the field of hepatology. So what has really changed hepatology does not come from hepatology. And I can probably say now that probably in 20 years from now, what is going to change our field will certainly come from outside hepatology. Well, there are some easy answers to the future of hepatology. I've seen some of them, and some of these slides have been circulating for a few years. And it is not my slide. I'm borrowed from Stefano Bellentani. It's showing the future of hepatologist menu. It's an extremely easy and intuitive slide. In 10 years from now, hepatitis C probably will disappear and will be replaced by NAFLD. And we don't really know what's going to happen to alcohol. Hepatitis B, we hope it will disappear as well. Autoimmune probably will remain the same, and genetic disorders will remain the same. Another easy answer is the what many colleagues have been showing also for years is the looming phagocytosis of hepatology by other specialists. For example, viral hepatitis may be managed by infectious disease, steatohepatitis by diabetologists, and so on. But this is very long, this is hinting at the potential disappearance of hepatology as a distinct discipline. And the question is, can hepatology survive managing the leftovers like cholestatic of genetic and rare disorders? I personally don't believe so. I am completely against and disagree with the content of this slide, but I'm just showing what has been circulating for many years, shown by many, many colleagues who are afraid about the future. I'm not afraid about the future. I just think that the changes will not come from our field. And my talk in the past, I've been giving this talk to the master class of EASL, was also including research, but since I have only 20 minutes, I will discuss only some ideas about teaching and healthcare. Let's start from teaching. The reason why I'm starting from teaching, because in 2015, I joined the EASL governing board as an educational counselor. And we were in those days organizing the first EASL schools of hepatology, clinical and basic. And the typical draft program of a school was the following: famous specialist giving a lecture for 20 minutes, followed by discussion. And then another specialist giving a talk, followed by discussion, and so on. And then the cherry on the cake was a world-known expert giving a state-of-the-art lecture for 30 minutes without discussion, because traditionally, state-of-the-art lectures are not followed by questions. So that was the way we were running schools in those days, just 5 years ago, okay? And I immediately spotted a problem in the way we were organizing schools, because if you think about traditional classroom done in this way is completely teacher-centered, is content-oriented, so we are just transferring information, and the students are passive beneficiaries of the learning process. So now how do we retain learning? Think about it, because the worst way to retain learning is to listen to a lecture. And I'm saying that against my own interest, because I'm truly a believer that in 1 week from now, you will probably forget about 90% of what I just said. It's already a better way of learning is to participate, exercise together, discussing together. Even better is to practice together under the guidance of a coach, of a tutor. Paradoxically, I'm not really sure that everybody understands that the best way to learn something is to be a teacher. And that's one of the reasons why I love giving lectures, because that's the best way I learn things. Now, let's think about Its lectures are not the best way to learn. Why do we keep teaching this way? I mean, this is a key question. It's so self-evident, probably, that nobody really, or very few people understand that when they plan schools of hepatology. And Eric Mazur from Harvard University is a physicist, is one of those who introduced the concept of flipped classroom. When you transfer information, there is a big problem. In the digital age, information is everywhere. Most of it is free, it's quite diverse. I understand it may be fake, it may be biased, may be incomplete, may be selective. Nonetheless, we must understand it is very rich to unprecedented levels. It's like the Babel's library in Borges' novels, as you may remember. But 10 years ago, it was not this way. I mean, information was highly selected, and you really had to do a lot of effort to reach information. Today is everywhere, okay? So the point is that information is not education. When you just impart information, you're not educating people. Information is just addressing a problem, which is literacy. But education means to reach functional literacy. What does it mean? Functional literacy means to learn how to criticize the data. So the data is there, is available to everyone. What you need to know, to learn at school, is how to sort things out, to criticize the data in order to use them correctly. Just to give you a very simple example, when you read a newspaper, the news can be wrong, can be right, can be very rich. But the problem is how to sort news out. How can you differentiate what is fake from what is true? And this is where we should concentrate our efforts when you plan a school of hepatology. Well, functional literacy is not based on intuition. Let's clarify this, a very important concept. If you read Daniel Kahneman was a Nobel Prize in economics. He wrote a wonderful book. I recommend you to read that. It's one of my Bibles, Thinking Fast and Slow. Human beings reason in two ways. Either they use a system one, which is using shortcuts, heuristics, we call them, to reach very fast instinctual decisions. But this is innate for sure, but the problem is that it's heavily characterized by cognitive biases. Then there is a second system which acts much slower, requires critical thinking, and thus its progress is based on reflection and logic. It takes time, a lot of effort to sort things out. Now let's go back now to information. Everybody's afraid of artificial intelligence, right? Well, every time we had a major change in the way we spread the information of technological advances, like think about the invention of the press in the 16th century or industrial revolution. In fact, this did not decrease the number of jobs. In fact, it increased the number of jobs because they diversified jobs. But still, when Harari writes his wonderful book, the fear is that if workers until now had to fight against exploitation, in the future, with artificial intelligence takes over, we have to fight not to become useless. This is a big threat. And that includes also, I'm sorry to say, also includes, for example, radiologists. You know that very well. It's been discussed heavily. It involves pathologists. You just need a Google image search to make a diagnosis properly, right? It may be a very efficient way. Now, a few days ago, there was an article in The Guardian, and I believe that many of you read this article, which was written by a robot. And it makes absolute sense. It's a full article in a newspaper, very distinguished newspaper, The Guardian. It was completely written by a robot. There was, of course, there is a catch, because behind the robot, there was a programmer, and it was an undergraduate student, can you believe that? And it tried just to teach the robot what to say, and the robot did everything else. But there is a key sentence in the whole article, written by a robot, without being taught to say that. I'm only a set of code. So please don't be afraid of robots. Don't be afraid of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will only say what we tell them to do. And I also strongly believe that soft skills will not be replaced soon by robots. It was a nice article in Harvard Business Review a few years ago dealing with this threat, so-called threat, but it's not a threat. I'm mentioning soft skills because these are the so-called 21st century skills, which were heavily discussed by Microsoft and Bill Gates and all these people. They include critical thinking, which means to recognize and avoid cognitive biases, which are the Kahneman system 2, go beyond the system 1. The second is collaboration, working in a team, using emotional intelligence, which means to look at the reality from other people's perspective. We are all medical doctors, and we use this, and we call this empathy, right? We try to look at the reality from patients' point of view. And to reach decisions, share decisions within teams, which are negotiated. Third soft skill is communication, which is at the same time to communicate and to listen. Don't forget about that. And the fourth is service orientation. These are very extremely important skills, which are not always taught at school. Now, the next step is problem solving. Can we use a problem solving approach to learn soft skills? Well, it's very funny. Think about people are naturally curious, so we have to exploit what is a natural tendency of human beings. People do like solve problems. We like solve problems also when problems are completely useless. If you think about, people like to do crossword puzzles. Nobody needs crossword puzzles. Why do people like to do them, right? But in fact, it is because the act of solving conveys pleasure. There is a natural reward system which is set into motion by solving problems to reach the solution, okay? We have to exploit that as well. And then we can add to problem solving the collaborative dimension, and the PISA system in Europe insisted a lot on this aspect. Collaborative dimension means to foster the acceptance of effective division of labor. Why not? To learn how to incorporate information from other peers' perspective against collective intelligence, to enhance creativity and quality of solutions, and especially, most importantly, to provide a shared solution to a given problem. So we now come to the new format of Visual School. That's what we are running today. We put together the enhanced memory retrieval rate approach, which provides, for example, to give the readings before the school, to use collective intelligence, which means to work in a team, to foster 21st century skills, and we'll see in a minute how, and to transfer the interest in knowledge. That's the new Visual School format, which is the so-called flipped classroom model, which is learner-centered, problem-oriented, and students are actually actively elaborating a solution to an assigned problem within a team, a small team, under the guidance of a tutor. How does this work? Well, in traditional classroom, we just said at the beginning, the teacher is just a sage on a stage, giving a big lecture. Students listen, take notes, are assigned homework. They do homework at home alone, which is very wrong, I think, and they have to run an exam to pass. In the flipped classroom model, which is the ESO classroom model now, the teacher becomes just a guide on the side. Students are assigned pre-readings 1 month ago for his classroom, for example, guidelines, clinical practice guidelines. They read them, they study them, and then they do classwork together. We provide a problem to be solved, and they solve the problem together, discussing, developing the soft skills within the team. And in fact, the second day of the school, we have to prepare a PowerPoint. In fact, they give a lecture. And remember what I said at the very beginning, the best way to learn is to become a teacher. Let's pass now to healthcare. I mean, healthcare, again, is a huge topic. And of course, I already mentioned that the easy answer to the future of hepatology is to recognize the fact that non-communicable diseases are on the rise, and there will be constitute the mass of disorders in 10 years from now. Most of them are preventable by lifestyle modification. So I see a major role for medical doctors to invest in prevention, of course, which is very easy. By the way, the COVID crisis showed us how behavioral changes can make a difference also in communicable disorders. You see that. And you see all the list of the new paradigm of healthcare and how it should be changing. The payment comes from acute payment for fee for service to outcome-based, so prevention-oriented incentives, focus, all provider information. I will not develop all this, we don't have the time. But let me add a few details. Of course, one of the most important things we must deal with in 10 years from now is that the mankind will age. So aging is going to be a big problem, if I can say so, because I mean, when you say age, you say comorbidities. And the number of comorbid patients will increase significantly in a few years from now. And dealing with a polymorbid population is not easy. It requires special skills. Of course, to recognize, first of all, we are shifting from communicable to non-communicable disorders. But elderly patients who are also comorbid are frail. They have altered pharmacokinetics. They have a lot of drug-drug interactions because of comorbidities. They may have iatrogenic affections. On these patients, we are very difficult and complex patients. We require discussion within multidisciplinary team-based integrated management. Again, the word team is a key word today in my talk. But one of my most important message I want to transfer to you is, okay, healthcare is certainly important, but the key word again is not really just healthcare, is access to healthcare. And let me give an example, which is a very, in Asia, you are the pioneers. I'm admiring the way you dealt with vaccination against hepatitis B. You implemented these decades ago, and you were extremely successful. And according to this study published in The Lancet a few years ago, vaccination has averted 310 million new cases of chronic hepatitis B between 1990 and 2010. And you know how many liver cancers you've been averting with the vaccination against hepatitis B. It's a success story, let me tell you. And it's the first vaccine which is active against cancer. But think about it. Is every child profiting from this success story? Well, it is true that most countries, WHO, are vaccinating infants. But what we need is not just to vaccinate infants. We need to vaccinate at childbirth. Only 96 WHO member countries have introduced the hepatitis B birth dose vaccine. In certain areas of the globe, only 50 to 50% of deliveries are attended by skilled health staff. So unfortunately, still today, we are in 2020 now, and I would say that so many children do not profit from this success story. It's very bad. Can we improve the access to care? I will give an example of smartphones, but I may actually give many other examples. We don't have the time. I can give the examples of captors. I believe everybody has captors in the smartphone, measure the number of steps. You can measure blood pressure, you can measure saturation of oxygen, you can measure blood glucose levels. We are going towards the so-called Internet of Things. But let me give you the example of smartphone because it's very easy, in fact. And I always show two pictures. So this was a shot in Rome, in the Vatican City, in 2005, on occasion of the funeral of Pope John Paul II. And you see the crowd gathering to mourn the death of the Pope, 2005. 8 years later, 2013, same pictures, the same place, the Vatican City, for the inauguration of Pope Francis. I think these two pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? Because, today, 61% of people globally own a mobile phone and 45% of a smartphone. So we can actually exploit this to make a difference. Just to give an example, you can use smartphones to run assays, serological assays. This was developed by this group and published in scientific reports. You see here, antibody assays for HIV, syphilis. You just need 2 microliters of blood by finger prick when you use this dongle connected to a smartphone, and it takes 15 minutes, and it costs $1.4 per triplet. Nothing. But even can you even go further, because Graham Cook from Imperial College developed a PCR as a loop mediator, isothermal amplification of HIV RNA using a smartphone. It is just powered by a USB port. Can you believe that? Now you can actually go further. You can do ultrasound with smartphones. I don't know if you're aware of that, but Philip has developed a Lumify application. You can connect a probe, which are only the limitation. You still not do a fibroscan. A shear wave elastography will require a processing capacity, which is not compatible with current smartphone power, but it's just a matter of time. If you think about Moore's law, development of processing capacity is very fast anyway. You can even go further and use platforms to communicate the data in real time very far away. Using, for example, again, the Philips React platform. You can do live streaming ultrasound and transmit it somewhere else. And I show these pictures just to show you how you are here in a savannah in Ethiopia, and this nurse is making ultrasound of a pregnant woman using a tablet, and she's transferring the data, the ultrasound data in real time with a tablet to a gynecologist who is found miles and miles away. He actually may be in London or in Beijing, doesn't really matter, but you can do that. Technology allows to do that. I think it is absolutely wonderful. So what I'm just insisting is that technology is very good, okay, but what you have to make sure that everybody can profit from that. So there is only one message, or honestly, I would like you to remember from today's talk, is that what Peter Piot wrote in his wonderful book, No Time to Lose. You know, Peter Piot is now director of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He was one of the discoverers of Ebola virus in Congo many years ago. He participated to the executive director of the UNAIDS, United Nations AIDS Agency. He wrote his book, his autobiography. And he said, really, why I chose medicine. One, of course, he liked to travel, but also to work for greater social justice. And he says a very important thing, which is ill health is the worst kind of injustice. If you think about, that's the only message I want to transfer to you today. So if you ask me again, what is the future of hepatology? The easy answer is that the spectrum of liver disease will change, but everybody knows that. It's not really a very important thing. What is important is that the important changes will likely come from outside hepatology, and I include technological advances, and Professor Lee mentioned that. Artificial intelligence will change the way we teach and will change the way we provide healthcare. But most importantly, please, future hepatologists will have to focus on access to care to make sure that everyone can benefit of future technological advances. And with that, I thank you very much for this invitation again, for your attention.
That is quite different than what we thought. And that is the beauty of this lecture. Francesco, we thought it is going to be calculations and blah, blah, blah. But I'll come to the questions, but I must admire your different ways of looking at Mona Lisa. So we all look at Mona Lisa in our own way, and you look in your own way. But there are two questions. One from my friend Nikolai. Nikolai, thank you for joining us and APASL's webinars. And the question is very directed and is close to my heart. Hepatology is all pathology. There is no hepatology without pathology, no without a liver biopsy. So Nicola wants to know, well, in Europe, they are not doing biopsies. But let me tell you, in ILBS, we did last year 1,835 liver biopsy in one institute. So we are still sticking to the way hepatology should. But the question is, will there be hepatology without pathology?
I'm very happy you're asking this question. I want to, by the way, I want to say hello to Nicola. He's a very long-lasting friend of mine. And it's a perfect question. I love it. I'm a strong supporter of the liver biopsy myself. I think that it cannot be hepatology without liver pathology. I understand there is a trend to use less and less this, but I think it's a pity. Without liver biopsy, I would not be here today because I built my career on steatosis, as you remember. So,
and you are a pathology chair.
But you know, and my boss in Torino, Professor Giorgio Verme, he was a gastroenterologist, and he wrote an atlas of liver pathology. And I fully agree. We cannot abandon the morphology. It would be a tremendous mistake. What is actually changing is the way we are using the data, I think only. Because as I said, artificial intelligence will certainly come in to help. Digital pathology is a reality already in our institute, for example. We use the digital pathology for analyzing biopsies. And don't forget that liver pathology is not just about scores. It is about patterns. And patterns, to recognize patterns, you really need a library. So I believe the future of liver pathology will be to build this library, I mean, with bona fide diagnosis to make pathology more easy to interpret. But I'm a strongly believer of morphology importance in hepatology discussions. And thank you for this question. It's a very important point.
And you use a very nice phrase, bona fide pathology.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
like it,
Yes.
I like it, and I think pathology will live, and it should keep educating, because every patient is different. All the scores are same. The second
Absolutely.
question comes from Nepal. It is by Dr. Sitaram, and he wants to know how many hepatologists should be there per million population.
I don't know the answer to this question, because but it's a crucial point, because we need to know now how many pathologists to educate, and knowing that they will practice hepatology in 10, 20 years from now. But it's the same question for liver pathology and so on. I think the pathologists will not go away, because the roles will be probably changed. I insisted on soft skills, and where communication is not only important among colleagues, but also extremely important on the one hand with patients, and on the other hand with the media, including social media. I see there is a question about social media. We can comment on that later. It's an extremely important aspect as well. And the other point is to be part of multidisciplinary teams, and this clearly is crucial. I'm less and less hot on hepatology in the field. I mean, they actually can act as a distance, of course, with the technological tools we are showing today. I mean, it's wonderful. I'm talking to colleagues from India, China, Hong Kong. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful, unprecedented thing. And we can discuss a lot of things.
Yes,
but I mean, but patients still need to talk to doctors.
Yes.
That's why
I'll give brief data, Francesco.
Yes,
One
please.
of the legends, we lost Roger Williams. He wrote in the Lancet Commission in 2014 for UK. How many hepatologists should be there at the main hospital, the district? And he went down to the dot, where and how many in Wales and how many in this area. So, Dr. Sitaram, you may kindly read that Roger Williams, Lancet Commission 2014 and then 2019. Both are very, very educative. But yes, you have to get back to the social media in hepatology. Is it science or it is just social media?
Well, Professor Strasser asked his question. I think this is playing a major and a bigger role in the society as a whole, not just in hepatology, everywhere. I mean, social media are, pervading our daily activities. Most of us have a Facebook profile, and I know many of us are tweeting all day information. You know, the problem with the social media is the echo chambers. What happens is being shown is a very nice study from University of Ca' Foscari in Venice from Professor Quattrociocchi's group. You can find these articles in the Medline. It's a very provoking, thought-provoking articles. Social media have a very unfortunate consequence of amplifying the so-called echo chambers, which means that the people who are actually the same thoughts and the same trends, they tend to stick together, amplifying and uniforming their own languages. It's a phenomenon which actually may hamper dialogues. And that's why I'm insisting on one of those soft skills, which is emotional intelligence, being taught very early at school, which means to learn how to look at reality from other people's perspective. It's a crucial point.
In the interest of time, I have two quick questions. One is Professor Kenichi, and he wants to know further about technology, and he wants also the number of so he wants to know about technology basically. I have thought about clinical training and clinical technology education in the field.
It is certainly important to know about technology, but for me, it's much more important to know about cognitive biases. This is the key, because what is important is not to produce data, is to interpret the data.
Okay. Well, one or two brief before I open it to other panelists. The Easel School concept is good, and the APASL School is starting on 29th of September, and it will be running. And what APASL School of Hepatology is planning may be very primitive, but we will invite you to join, and I'll tell you why. It starts with symptomatology, jaundice, anorexia, hysterexis, and the students to learn how to diagnose from the masters. And it is a shared platform the way you plan it. So would you join the APASL School for teaching something? And maybe Easel and APASL can share platforms. With that background, I will open it to the panelists and other colleagues. George.
Yes, thank you. This is really a very sexy lecture, which is very stimulating, and well done, Professor Francesco. In the current scenarios of the world, I always feel there's a conflict between experience and knowledge on the one side and against artificial qualifications on the other side.
Yes.
In other words, there are people telling you what you should be doing instead of you having been doing this for a long period of time, and they make things more complicated. For instance, about liver biopsies, we have been doing liver biopsies for decades with all the studies and so on. And nowadays, people want to have radiologists and ultrasound people to do the biopsies and kick you out of the boat. But I think that's it's as a discipline of hepatology that we still talk about experience and also the knowledge and how our touch, and especially pointed out correctly by Professor Sarin, how we come with the skills. And it is not just a learning process or qualifications or a degree, which would beat the whole thing. Because like in our old days, 30 years ago, I worked with Professor C.L. Light, and we talk about, and we do the systemic therapy for advanced liver cancer with adriamycin. And now it's all about medical oncologists, and they want to sever the field of hepatocellular carcinoma. And I don't, well, as a hepatologist, what should be our attitude? I mean, how should we handle this? And I think you have bring up a very important topic. How are we going to handle this? These are the things that we have been working on, and what is the dynamics behind, and how should we balance to bring the best benefit for our patients?
It's $1 million question, George. Is if I can say, I mean, the point is, what will imaging technology provide us in a few years from now? With rapidity, the speed of processing is increasing. As you know, the Moore's law is doubling every year. Quantum computing, who knows what is going to be. We may actually abandon the liver biopsy the way we know it today, but that does not mean that we can abandon morphology. So morphology is absolutely mandatory to know. And because, as I said, it's not just a matter of scores. That's why I like non-invasive scores based on the blood test, but this gives you a score, a number, does not give you a pattern. That's why I'm insisting on morphology. Now, how we describe, how we reach that morphological imaging, that's a different kind of talk, because until now we've been using a pathology. I think we'll be still using pathology for many years to come, unless the imaging processing approaches develop to a point that we don't need that, we can do it from the outside without invasive techniques. But I'm not so sure about this now, today in 2020. It may come, probably wishful thinking from my side. But
you stick to pathology.
Yeah, exactly. For now, I will. Yeah.
Like this to be the voice from Easel, not your personal views, and we would like pathology to survive. We have just probably we are overrun. I would like our president, if Dr. Tanwande is here, Professor Tanwande, are you around? I can't see you. I can.
Okay.
I would like you to briefly tell the man who is holding the purse for Easel to come to Asia or bring. So please tell him about your and APASL's meeting before we conclude.
Yes, by the way, thank you so much, Professor Negro, for your provocative talk, and this is really the inspiration for our young hepatologists, and this is, I think, it's going to be. I know you are a hepatitis B expert, but this is more than the expert. You fly so high, so please come to Asia for the APASL 2021. And for teaching and educating our young hepatologists.
Okay. I will conclude by giving you one personal experience. I was, it's no praise, I was lucky to be in the laboratory of Roberto Grossman in my Fulbright when I was an assistant professor. And Roberto was a hybrid. He had done his gastroenterology 2 years, and then he did 2 years of cardiology. So he was a true hybrid, gastro plus cardio, and he developed hemodynamics for the liver. What you have told, Francesco, is something like we need to be hybrids. We can go beyond our boundaries. Yes. That is our training, that is our skills, and we need to imbibe more from others while we share. So I entirely agree with you. Hepatology will be driven by hepatologists with multiple hats. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Thank you.
If you agree, and others, we will conclude today's session. And thank you, Secretariat is Izumi there. And thank you, Professor Professor Lee, for that excellent talk. Maybe you can hear our thanks and gratitude from all our viewers. We still hold on to 181 audience on this day. So they all are interested to become hepatologists, academicians, and of course, multiple hats. Thank you all. We conclude.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hello, George.
Hello, George.
I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to attend the APASL 2021. Save the day. like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to attend the APASL 2021.
Save the day.